All right, cool. So we are live. Everything looks all set up and good to go. So today, welcome everybody who's here early, who's been hanging out. Welcome to Comic Convos, episode 3. Today I'm here with Rex Wang from Dynamite Dynamic Forces. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. If you guys were able to catch last week's episode of The Experience, I got it down low on the ticker. I was a guest featured on their live stream, and I'm going to be doing that every other Wednesday. So I wasn't on this week. Make sure you tune in for next week as well. They sell a lot of awesome books. I believe they go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to do sales. Friday is their art day. They've gotten some incredible art coming at you guys tonight. Wednesdays is a lot of books. Right, the books you're talking about today are the ones for next Wednesday, correct?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. And then what do you guys do on Mondays?
Mondays we do comic collectibles. It's usually me and my partner John. Yeah, well, you were on the show last week. You kind of see how we do it. A lot of senseless banter and things of that nature. Try to keep people entertained. Before we get started, I want to shout out to you, Alec, AR Comics. A great channel. If you're watching for the first time, make sure you like, subscribe, whatever. The guy drops some serious comic knowledge on you with his reviews and videos, and a great resource, and a great friend of the comic world.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. So we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about tonight. So like I was saying before, this basically is going to lead into their live stream. A little bit of time difference, but we're going to be talking about a lot of their stuff. We're going to talk about what Rex does with Dynamite Dynamic Forces. If you guys don't know what that is, we're going to explain what Dynamic Forces even is too. So what do you do at Dynamite exactly, Rex?
Well, what I do is a lot of these live streams with different partners, YouTube partners like yourself. We do our own shows on the Experience channel. But Dynamic Forces was really created in early 1990s, I think 1993. Ironically enough, Nick Barucci, our publisher and our president of Dynamic Forces, publisher and president of Dynamite Comics at Dynamite Entertainment, we were actually competitors way back then. And it was, during the kind of death of Superman, and then the breaking of Batman with Bane and breaking his back and all that stuff. I don't know. You're much younger than I am, AR. So I don't know if you really remember this, or it's something you read in the comic annals of history, or whatever the case may be. Comics saw a tremendous boom during that period of time, and Nick and I were. My company, he was a vendor to the company I was working for, and then we eventually became competitors. And back then, I guess you would call it the beginning of this type of medium, was the QVC channel and the Home Shopping Network channel. And different than what we do now, but it was a very, very busy time for them. And eventually they brought comics on, and that's kind of how Nick and I got to know each other as first business partners, and then competitors. But we were throwing comics up there, and that was kind of the birthplace of Dynamic Forces. So Dynamic Forces really specializes in autograph comics, graded comics, variant covers, basically taking that next level of collectability with comics. I think that the company I was working for in Dynamic were probably the two largest sources of autograph books. It was a very new concept that they kind of drew from the sports collectibles world, autographed baseballs or autographed footballs, helmets, so on and so forth. And it transferred very well. And it turned out that the collectors out there had a lot of interest for creators like Dan Jurgens, or Scott Hanna, or Peter David, guys from that era, Neil Adams, so on and so forth. And it created this new level of collectability, and that's sort of how Dynamic Forces grew, and then continued to do that. And then several years later, I'm not exactly sure of the time, Dynamic Forces started Dynamite Entertainment, the publishing end. And Dynamite Entertainment actually publishes, a lot of different titles: Green Hornet, Lone Ranger, Betty Page, and taking the knowledge that Dynamic Forces kind of learned about collectability, then came the variant covers and things like that. So Red Sonja, probably one of our biggest titles, and certainly timeless. Certainly Elvira, and with the experience we learned at Dynamic Forces, Dynamite started to really aggressively, not only the content obviously in the art, but using the variant covers and giving each issue something a little bit different to try and grow the collectability world of comics. And then now, so many years later, we've seen, partially due to the pandemic, but I think this was happening anyway, we've seen the explosion. And certainly we never expected to see the kind of success that the movies have had. The TV series, like Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and things like that. I mean, I'm old enough. I grew up in an era that the movies they tried to make were generally pretty bad. Especially those connected to the Marvel universe. And I was probably a young man or even a kid when Superman with Christopher Reeves first came out, and that was really the, I guess, beginning point of movies. And then you had some dips, and then Marvel ran into financial problems, so on and so forth, and then all of a sudden it started to work, and we saw that. And what's interesting, I think, now is that we see that you look at top 10 movies that are released, so many of them are dependent on comics now as a source material. Yep. And that's what I found really interesting, because I think most of us that grew up as comic collectors, comic fans, reading the John Byrne X-Men, things like that, we kind of have always said that this is great stuff. This is great source material. Somebody should really go out there and make a movie or something like that. And to finally see us reach that point has been phenomenal. I mean, no doubt. But I think what's also interesting is I think Hollywood's kind of run out of good material, and they're coming back to the comic world to find that great source material with which they can create new movies. I know that's something that you look at too, with your shows.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel's obviously been on fire with everything. The movies are fantastic, the shows are incredible, but I can agree with a lot of, just movies in general. Some of them are kind of more boring, so they are taking a lot of comic-related stuff. We're seeing it on Hulu right now. I think they just released Why the Last Man. And what was it, on Netflix? We've got Jeff Lemire's Sweet Tooth, which was an incredible read, by the way. We just see so much cool stuff finally coming to the screen. And as a reader, you're really getting to enjoy the adaptation, the changes, right, but where it's going to be going. And it's cool to see how they've kind of stuck to the story, but at the same time, they've made their own story out of it. And I don't know, it's a really good time just in general for everybody, readers, people who like movies, TV shows. We're seeing a lot of everything for everybody.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that, when Superman came out and then Michael Keaton's Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker, it proved that comics could make that transition into the movie world. But then I think it hit a lull. And I think the reason it kind of hit that lull was, well, it's Batman, it's Superman, these are historic, iconic figures of American culture, pop culture. So yeah, it works for that, but it's not going to work for this other stuff, and that people see. And I think probably Wesley Snipes' Blade really kind of proved to Hollywood, the studios, that nah, you know what? This stuff is good stuff, good imaginative material that you can build on. And Blade really proved that point. I think a lot of people forget to talk about Blade, and because a lot of people that watch that movie didn't realize that it was a comic book character. They went to watch the movie, they loved the movie. It was good, a good storyline, great action. But people say, oh, it was a comic. What? It was a comic? I didn't know that. And I think Blade really brought it to that next level, because it proved that, no, it doesn't have to be Superman. It doesn't have to be Batman. It doesn't even have to be Spider-Man. It can be one of the less mainstream characters that maybe the general public that isn't into comics begins to understand that hey, you can put this out there. You don't even need to tell them it's from a comic book, but the material is so great, the source material, that it turns into a great movie. And that's what's led to all these other things that we're seeing today, like The Boys, just trying to think, Loki, an offshoot there. Even Thor to a certain extent. How many people knew that Thor was a comic book? So it's really grown, and the problem that we see, and the reason that we started the experience, partially because of the pandemic and the way that people absorb information has changed. but we also saw that the movie universe was growing like this, okay, but comic book collectability was not growing at the same peak. So, the experience was something to kind of bring new collectors, make them kind of understand that, hey, all these movies you see, all these great movies that that you're watching, and TV series that you're watching, that didn't come from anywhere. These are not all new stories. Some of them are old stories that these characters, the universe they exist in, is extremely vibrant, and it all comes from comic books. And we're hoping to educate people that, hey, there's a lot more stuff out there that you haven't seen or you haven't read, that you should really read, because if you like the movies, you're going to like the comics. And that was part of it. And I think the other part of the experience was, once the pandemic hit and people couldn't get to their local comic book shop, which, Wednesday, New Comic Book Day, you'd hang out, and it didn't matter what walk of life that person was from. And one could be an accountant, another person could be, a contractor, whatever. They had, look who's joined us. It's Nick Barucci.
Hey, how's it going today?
I'm going to interrupt the two professionals from talking. Everything you guys are saying is great.
It's brilliant.
It is.
See, Alec is brilliant. I'm just talking because that's what I do.
Hey, I haven't said much. It's all you talking good stuff right now.
You let me go, Alec. I could talk for hours.
No, to go back on what you said before, though, even Blade, like you said, a lot of people didn't know that was a comic book character. I grew up with Blade. My dad was a huge fan of it, and he's the one that was like, this is a comic book character. This is going to be an awesome movie. This is Marvel. I was like, get the hell out of here. I mean, I was probably, what do you think, 98 that came out, maybe?
It wasn't 98.
Yeah.
It's exactly.
Was it?
What people don't realize, without Blade, you wouldn't have the X-Men. And without the X-Men, you wouldn't have had Spider-Man. Those two franchises really kicked it off. Rumor has it Marvel got paid $25,000 for the rights to Blade, which New Line made hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's crazy.
Now, there's one of two ways to look at that. You could look at it like, oh my God, they got taken advantage of, which there is a part of that.
Yes, there is a part of that.
But the other thing is, New Line kicked off the Marvel Universe. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you look at everything that's happened over the decades. You're too young to know this, and you probably wouldn't know, but originally Tom Cruise in the mid-90s to late 90s was supposed to play Tony Stark and Iron Man. So
I did not know that.
That would have been a totally different thing, because, again, New Line got the rights to Blade, and they were considering getting Iron Man, but then Fox started taking the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. So Marvel started holding back, and they were in the middle of a bankruptcy, which was causing different problems. And the craziness, I'm going to go off on a tangent. Then we're going to circle back to what Rex was saying earlier.
Come on. Really?
You can speak for hours and be focused. I can speak for days on tangents.
And then you get the two of us together, and who knows what's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, we're going to talk comics no matter what, right?
Are we talking comics now?
We are. So, Marvel, before the bankruptcy, they sold the animation rights to New World. They sold the live action rights to the company they made, Masters of the Universe. I forget what that company is.
He-Man. Oh, the company.
The company, they went out of business. They did a great thing about it. They sold the weekly TV rights to somebody else. They had sparsed out the Spider-Man rights to so many places. And it was this guy, Eric Ellenbogen, who was the president of Marvel during the bankruptcy, showed up and made the argument with the judge that all the Spider-Man rights should go back to Marvel, that was the only way to help save the company. And he made it work. He put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And Eric Ellenbogen then started Classic Media, and just, the guy's a genius. I've met him only a few times, but he really was instrumental in saving Marvel, because, as much as we love the comics, it was really that deal that Eric did with Sony for the first Spider-Man movie, where they split the merchandising. They made over 125 or 150 million in merchandising on Spider-Man. That's where the real money came in. And that's what really helped keep Marvel out of bankruptcy again, because Marvel would have gone into bankruptcy again if it needed to. It just, it is what it is. But they were able to avoid it because of the Spider-Man movie. But this all brings up what you two were saying. And then I want to compliment Alec also. But one of the big things about the experience is, the pandemic affected what we were doing. Rex and I both have 30 years of TV shopping experience. QVC, Home Shopping Network, the shopping channel in Canada, the UK, Germany. We've been all over the world doing TV shopping. One thing that doesn't change is that you either have people who know family members who love comics, or who loved comics themselves buying from TV, and they were lapsed buyers. I mean, one thing that I'll never forget, I was in the UK. I used to get fan mail. It's kind of weird. And I actually, I'm one of those old guys that, like hoards almost everything. So I still have like 800 fan letters, believe it or not, in a filing cabinet. I know Rex is laughing because it's true. But the thing that really touched me was I got one letter from a woman, and she said that she never knew the X-Men were comics until she watched QVC. It was the Saturday morning TV show that her kids watched, the old Saban TV series with the music. Not that I can do it right.
Stop.
Right, exactly. So she wrote to me, and she said that because we encouraged everybody to go to the comic store, that now her and her kids on Saturday morning after they watch their TV. Now keep in mind, this is like 1997, right? After they watch TV, after they get done their TV watching on Saturday morning, and she knows they did their homework, it's become tradition for them to grab a bite to eat and then go to the comic store. And that meant so much to me because, one of the things that we do whenever we're selling a comic, we like to sell comics that we've read, that we believe in. And one of the things that I've done on QVC UK and in the US and Home Shopping Network is we would talk about the comic, like this issue of Name More and the Curse of the Mutants, talk about everything about it, emphasize how beautiful the cover art is, how great the story is by Stuart Moore, the beautiful art by Ariel Olivetti. We would say to fans, our books come with a certificate of authenticity and a holofoil seal. Unlike the holofoil seals that are with sports collectibles, music collectibles, movie, TV collectibles, we actually pay extra money to allow you to take the holofoil seal off. We recommend that you take it fully off. When you take it off, put it to the side so it doesn't attach itself to the book, and open the comic to read it. And we would always show the artwork, show how beautiful it is. And we would always emphasize going to the local comic store to pick up the next issue. Or if it was an anniversary issue, the issues that led up to it and the next issue. And I did one thing that really upset a lot of the other vendors, because QVC and Home Shopping Network is sale or return. So if you sell them items, whether it's jewelry, comic books, cards, bed sheets, clothing, it doesn't matter. Whatever doesn't sell gets returned to you. But we always made sure that we got books signed that either meant something to us, or we knew that creators did such a great job that we could be really excited about. And we would actually tell consumers, because they were new consumers, 90% of the people watching us on QVC, until they started becoming regular customers, were just new consumers that came across this or were buying for their kids or grandkids or husbands or nephews or whatever. And we would say, if you don't enjoy the comic, or whoever you buy it for doesn't enjoy it, please feel free to return it. We have that much faith in it. And we had people really upset with us. Believe it or not, QVC and Home Shopping Network were fine with it, because customer service is number one to them. The fact that we said that But the person who was on after me selling Tiffany lamps was really, really upset because they did not want the Tiffany lamps back.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Right? So, but going back to what Rex was saying, it's just the experience is looking at there's like $10 billion a year spent and generated on comic book properties, between the money that it takes to make movies, TV series, animation, action figures, video games, apparel, then the money that is spent to advertise all of them, then the money that is spent to go to the movies, to watch it on TV, the advertisers that pay to be on the shows, the money that Disney Plus and HBO Max now generates because of it. There is so much money spent, and Avengers Endgame is the #1 movie of all time, and the Marvel Universe, make no mistake, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the most successful franchise of all time. It is bigger than Harry Potter. It is bigger than anything else because it is one universe, and it has taken in probably over $20 billion. So the experience came from this background of TV shopping and trying to reach a larger audience, but it also became a call to action where we can talk to the fans directly and emphasize to them, even if you don't buy anything on the show tonight, visit your LCS. These comics are great. Buy the issue unsigned. Go buy the back issue. Buy the trade paperback. If your retailer doesn't happen to have it, then yes, buy the digital on Comixology or Amazon Kindle. But try it. See if you want to buy the series. See if you want to get excited about it. Because we can only win the new fans one at a time. We're fighting other media to get the fans to buy more comics if they're already collectors, and we're fighting other media to get these fans to even try their first comic. So as we're doing this, it's just fantastic. And the thing that I love about you, Alec, and when I ran across your show, is that you're a great ambassador for our industry. And I say this about quite a few people. I say this about Gem Mint. I say this about Robbie at Pop Culture Philosophers. I've said this about Very Gary, Pressable Defects, Mint Hunter Comics. You guys are great, great ambassadors for the industry because you're going on creating regular content for the world to see. And YouTube is the biggest TV station in the world. Now, it's the biggest TV station in the world, and there's 14 million episodes and counting of content to watch. But when you guys are working your collective butts off to make sure you're creating content that fans love, giving information for fans, showing them what it's like, and sending them to their local retailer, which you do every week. That is what I love. I said this a lot of times. I've been doing this since I was 13. I have no plans on doing anything else for the rest of my life. And anything that can be done to grow the industry is a win. So for me, I say thank you, Alec, for being so great at what you do.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words. And what you're talking about is really cool because, some of the people you mentioned, like Gem Mint, everyone kind of does their own thing. Like when you really break down some of these YouTubers that do comics, they kind of have their own specialties. Like when I think of Gem Mint, I know he does his reviews. I know now, since you mentioned Robbie from Pop Culture, they do a top 10 together. But Gem Mint, the omnibus hauls, the statues that he does, that's insane to me. You mentioned Very Gary. He does hauls as well, and he does CGC unboxings. The Pressable Defects, they talk about speculation videos. And Robbie does kind of the same thing. He talks about a lot of new comics as well. And that's just so cool about I mean, I don't talk to all of them, I'm going to be honest. I've watched a lot
Sure.
of their videos, but it's unique how we all have the same idea about a lot of things and we all love the same thing, but we all have such a different take on it, a different aspect. You know, the defects. They love doing their speculation stuff. They really go in depth with, you know, books that you should be investing in, books that could pop off in the future. Gem Mint, not only does he talk about the books, but then he has these statues that showcase maybe a scene from a book or a scene from a movie. And, you know, Very Gary does the same thing. He's talking about these are the first appearances. These are the big books. Look at this new one I got in. If you're interested in this, I mean, I know he does YouTube auctions as well. And I think he does it with the pressable defects too. I know they're pretty tight. And even Comic Tom, well, I've talked about it before. I'm not the biggest speculation person. I really like to read comics. The amount of work that goes into those videos that he does is insane to me. And I know a lot of people have, you know, they talk about how sometimes speculation is bad for the industry, but man, what he does, and he talks about these just the top 10 list, the top hottest books that are selling, the research and the time that he puts into that. That's incredible to me, because even just the 2 videos a week that I do, I know the time that I put into it, and the research that he does is just so much more in depth.
Well, I want to chime in and say I don't think speculation is bad for the industry, hands down. If it is legitimate heat that is being created, and when you look at Very Gary, when you look at Comic Tom, when you look at Pressable Defects, you said it very well. They do research. They know what they're talking about. They're not, this isn't like other industries where you have influencers pushing stuff because they have a vested interest in it. You know, you'll see overlap with Pressable Defects and Very Gary and with Comic Tom and with Gem Mint when he does the shows with Comic Tom, because they're following the trends and they're working it. They're not creating the trends, but they are enhancing the trends. You know, if Comic Tom talks about, hey, check it out, Amazing Spider-Man annual with the first Sinister Six just went up 180% from last May, the last time this great was sold that was in a public sale, whether it's eBay or an auction house. He's giving you that detailed information. So now people that may not have known about Amazing Spider-Man annual #1 may decide to go for it. But the people that were already buying it were already buying it. But all they're doing is arming everybody with information. You know, if these guys, and I mean this in the kindest way, if these guys only cared about money, if they only cared about money and did not care about the comics, they would be sitting there, they would be buying the books. And then when they do their shows, they'd be hard selling and you can order it from me. But they don't do that. What they do is they sit there, they tell you why something is hot, and it gets you active. Listen, the pandemic hurt a lot of retailers, and a lot of retailers were saved selling back issues right now. My buddy Jimmy Palmiotti's friend's store in Florida, his store moved to almost, I'm going by memory, but let's say he went from 10% in back issue sales to 40% in back issue sales. And that helped them during the pandemic when there wasn't as many books coming out. So, you know, speculation is fine. Speculation is great as long as it's real, as long as there's a justification for it. You know, people like to say that the speculators ruined the comics market in the 90s. That was outside forces without any justification to the speculation, okay? And some really crappy comics were coming out. I mean, I never say something like this out loud, so I don't want to belittle any creators, but let's just say back in the mid-90s, you didn't need 8 Thor books, you know? You're not getting the same kind of execution you are now. At that point, you were just getting books that were coming out that were just selling and people were just buying them. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything out of school here, but the Image founders, when they started, you had people like Sam Keith. That guy was an indie guy. And when he was doing the Max and he saw his sales, he was cranking out every issue on time, and cranking out can be negative. He was making sure he was hitting his deadlines. Todd was making sure he was hitting his deadlines. Some of the creators, they got the big orders on the #1 miniseries. So they solicited the whole miniseries. Then they went and solicited the new #1, which was the big numbers again, but they never finished the miniseries. So those kinds of inconsistencies affected everything. Deathmate, and again, this is just, you can read this, and we were all young. The Image guys were young, so when I say this, every single one of them has grown. They were great artists, but the extreme issue of Deathmate was so late that it was one of the first order adjusted comics, and it went from like 800,000 to 100,000 copies by the time it shipped. And it was the only reason why Valiant that year were the #3 publisher and Image was #4. It made all the difference in the world. And you just had inconsistencies. And then you had the Marvel bankruptcy, Marvel buying Heroes World. What a lot of people don't think about is our comics industry was still strong during Marvel's bankruptcy. The problem is when they bought Heroes World was 10% of the comics market. I'm going into old school stuff. We probably lost all the viewers now.
No?
We're the only 3 people talking and watching now.
Well, only the viewers that are like under 30, probably. I'll say this much. I mean, touching on what Nick was saying about speculation, I'm not going to say speculation in the comics business is a good thing or bad thing. Okay, that's above my pay grade. Yeah, it's people are going to speculate on almost anything. If it's collectible and people want it. So, person A has something, person B is willing to pay above market value for it. Guess what? You got speculation.
Yeah.
What I will say is this: is that period of time that Nick's referring to, the startup of Image and Dark Horse and all those, because for the longest time it was Marvel and DC. I think that was significant. Beyond that, there were a lot of bad comics that were released at that time. There were a lot of comics that I remember. One I think we were talking about the other night. There were so many speculators in the business that Turok #1, I think
1.7 million copies.
1.7 million copies, and then
it shipped on the same day as the Return of Superman.
And when it tanked hard. It tanked hard, and somebody looked at the numbers and said there are really probably only 100,000 active readers for Turok. So why were 1.7 million copies pre-ordered?
Yeah.
Because the speculators, who I'm going to be honest, a lot of them came from the sports card industry.
Right.
Thought that, this is it.
The coin industry. Not realizing that, well, with sports cards,
you still had that random element of, well, the player's got to be good.
Well, or Barry Bonds just hit just did a grand slam and saved the game, and all of a sudden people are like, I got to get my Barry Bonds card. There would be something.
Right, to that effect. But I think that
by the way, I know nothing about sports,
could you tell?
Barry Bonds is probably a basketball player for all I know.
Nah, he's baseball.
No,
even I know that.
Yes, I had a 25% chance of getting it right.
Probably less than that. But that period of the 90s when Image came out, I think it's okay. Well, Nick started with the baseball analogy, so I'm gonna continue with it. Back in the 70s, Curt Flood, not a real notable player at the time. He's a good enough player, but he actually was the one that started because of his labor dispute, which he eventually lost. But he started up, and people are going to say, well, these athletes get paid too much. Maybe they do. But Curt Flood was a pivotal figure in that time because of his labor dispute with Major League Baseball. It was the beginning of the era where the baseball owners didn't hold all the money. Now the talent on the field did. And I kind of feel like that period of time for comic books in the 90s, with the creation of Image and, Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld and all those guys taking off on their own was, Todd McFarlane was similar to that in the sense that all of a sudden the creator said, hey, this stuff's coming out of my brain. Okay. So why are all the big publishers taking all the money? And in the sense that when they did that, it was like Curt Flood. They started that movement saying, hey, I'm creating this stuff, so I should get the lion's share of the revenue. And they created Image, and the rest is sort of history. So I think something very important came out of that era, even though there were a lot of bad comics that came out of it. But that was one of the things that I think came out of it. The speculation part, look, it's right now we're seeing.
Well, there's also a fundamental difference in the speculation of today and the speculation of
I agree with that,
because now you're looking at historical issues that have been embedded in your mind for decades. You know, like nobody's going out there buying 600,000 copies of Venom #1 because of a Venom movie. They're buying Secret Wars #8. They're buying Amazing Spider-Man 252. They're buying Marvel Team Up 141. They're buying, you know, Spidey 299, 300 on up. So the speculation is now on back issues, on vintage books, whether it's Bronze Age, more modern, Silver Age. So that's where the speculation is, where the interest is beyond the comic industry, and it's basically getting people into the comic industry. So to a degree, speculation is good because it's bringing people back in. I mean, we just saw it this week with the Grendel TV series being announced. All Grendel sales popped. Books on eBay shot up in price, and it's because Grendel is a great book. It's speculation based partially on nostalgia for people that remember Grendel, and partially on people that are interested in it. So, you know, that's why there's a difference in the speculation.
Right. No, I agree with what Nick's saying. But I mean, for me, the speculation, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, if you have something today that's going to sell more, you know, more tomorrow, or has the potential to sell more tomorrow, you're going to have a speculator. Okay. I mean, you know, that's how the entire commodities interest, you know, happens. You got a bunch of guys in the pit in Wall Street, you know, selling pork bellies and frozen orange juice. You know, I bet the guy couldn't even make, you know, a pitcher of orange juice from the frozen orange juice, let alone know what to do with it, right? You know,
why is it all of a sudden you talk about pork bellies and orange juice?
It always goes back to food for me.
It got me hungry.
It was the dude.
Yeah, right. There's trading places.
Last week it was cheesesteaks, and now we're on to frozen orange juice.
You know what? I gotta really eat before I do these segments, because somehow I always drift off the food, and we'll talk about cheesesteaks later. But you know, to me, so really it's something outside of anybody's control, whether they think positively or negatively about it. It's just happens. But what I think is interesting about comics as a speculation vehicle, if you will, is that is it any more ridiculous than people who started buying Bitcoin, or anything, you know, or any particular stock or bond that you may invest in? The one difference I can tell you is that, I don't know, maybe there are people in the world that have done this, but you know, I don't know anybody that looks on their Coinbase account and you know, starts loving their Bitcoin. They love the money that they may be making, but they're not hugging their Bitcoin or looking at their Bitcoin because it doesn't actually exist, right? It's a digital currency. The difference, I think, with comics is that if you buy, and Nick and I talk about this all the time, if you buy what you love,
that's all you got to do,
and the value goes up, hey, that's a bonus.
And if the value doesn't go up, you still got what you love.
But I don't know anybody that could, you know, I don't know any Wall Street guys. They might look at their bank account and count the money, and it makes them happy. And hey, listen, if I had a few more zeros in my bank account, I'd be happy too.
You wouldn't complain at the very least.
I wouldn't complain. But you know, they don't go home loving their stock or hugging their stock or reading their stock. You know, it's not something that happens. With comics, I think that's the thing. Okay, if it appreciates in value, great, good for you. You know, that's a bonus. But if it doesn't, who cares? If you bought the comic because you're a fan, because you love the storyline, you love following that storyline, then you're already winning something. You know, you're already gaining something. You know, the speculation part, that's just a bonus. You know, are there people in the industry that are buying it purely from a speculation standpoint? Sure. I mean, you know, we've seen that certainly within the last 18 months, we've seen the collectibles, industry, not just comics, explode. You've got, you know, you've got investment companies buying out CGC, PSA, all those things. You know, why? Because they see value. Okay, they see value, and they see that this is, you know, all the financial experts that bash Bitcoin. Yeah, I bet there's Bitcoin in their portfolio now. Okay, so it's just something they see that is appreciating in value, and they see a future in it. For those of us that are not necessarily big Wall Street investors, there's no reason why we should change what we do. You know, if there's a title that you love and the title that you've been reading for years, you've been following, you know, continue to buy that title.
I read The Flash before the TV series. I read The Flash now.
You know,
I read the Green Lantern, even though that movie was not good.
but maybe go to your LCS to buy 2 copies, so you have a reader's copy. You know,
exactly.
because there's nothing worse than
or
finding
buy
out
the one you love and try something else.
Well, knowing that a CGC 10 of a particular issue is worth $1,000, but because you handled your reader's copy too much, you've got a CGC 5 if you send it in.
Those black covers, you got to get 2 copies.
Right, exactly. So, but beyond that, I mean, the other thing that you touched on with the experience, and right before you came in, Alec and I were talking about, I think part of the reason that the experience, the YouTube channel was created was we realized that first and foremost, the pandemic has devastated small businesses throughout the country in every industry, whether you be a restaurant, a hot dog stand, an ice cream stand, a local comic book shop. Everybody's been devastated. And I think one of the things that most comic collectors miss beyond, obviously going to cons, but going every Wednesday to their local comic book shop for, New Comic Wednesday to get their pull list, to maybe meet up with other people that have the same interests about comics or titles that you read. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're coming from. You could be a baseball coach, you could be a Wall Street investor, you could be an attorney, you could be a general contractor, but you're all together because of this one interest. And that kind of disappeared. And I think that with your show, certainly, and with shows on the Experience and Gem Mint and Rock and Robbie, with his channel, it's giving us a virtual version of that, so that like minds with like hobbies can get together and chat. Doesn't matter what we do in our normal lives, we have this one common interest. And I think that's when Nick says, guys like yourself, guys like Gem Mint, guys like Robbie, that's what you bring. And all of us that do this within the comic world, we're not ever competing with each other. We're competing with, the YouTube channel that is Arkansas Pickers. We go out and we look for junk and, that type of thing. Not to say we're not necessarily competitors, but we're trying to drive your interest back into the comic book world, not necessarily into flea markets, so to speak. So everything that we do at this level, helps support that, but also helps support your local comic book shop. And again, if I'm sure most of your audience, has their own local comic book shop, but Nick and I always encourage. John said it the other night, and I said it once again, and I don't know how great an analogy it is, but if it's a bad one, we're blaming it on John because he's not here. The creators create the seeds of the comics, and the local comic book shops are the soil with which the seeds go in. And without that soil, you have no growth. You just have a bunch of seeds, and you can't eat the seeds. And that I think is the key, and we're losing them. And once you lose enough of them, I begin to wonder if Hollywood has enough creativity, or if people are willing to watch.
I'll actually take that a step further. Actually, I'll do it a little bit different.
You're going to make my analogy even worse.
It's actually a great analogy. So it's not John's idea.
There we go.
So no, if you think about it, the seeds are the creators and the publishers. The creators and the publishers are the seeds in the soil. The retailers are the trees and the people that make sure that the fruits and the vegetables are as perfect as they can be, so that when the consumers come, they actually want to buy the food. It's our job and the creator's job to make sure that the beginning is there, that the seeds in the soil are perfect. And then it is the retailer's job to actually cultivate the tree, grow the tree, make sure that the food is perfect, or if it, vegetables, whatever, that the consumer actually wants it. And it's their job, no matter what. I mean, your local LCS is there to service you, but they're also there to encourage and sell to you. And that's the whole thing. I mean, I think one of the things that's been lost in the world today, look, I used to go to the comic store. I started when I was 12. And when I was 13, I became a weekend warrior and started selling at conventions.
Now the comic book store comes to him. He gets a delivery every week.
I've got 5 fingers, and guess which one I want to point at you.
I don't know which one.
We'll do this another time. Let's see. It's not this one.
You can do it on our own show. I don't want to get Alec in trouble.
We'll just say it's not those two. But we used to go in there, and you would be arguing whether Superman or Thor was stronger, or whether Daredevil or Batman could be better. And today it's like, it's hard to have an opinion on something because with social media, which sometimes feels like anti-social media, people will pounce. Your local comic store is still a great place to have an opinion, to build a friendship, to build a kinship, so to speak, and to just enjoy this medium. We are the most fertile medium in the world.
All the movies are made out of this now.
Yes, and there's no limitations to special effects. There's no limitations
to
genre, to anything.
We've come so far from the Corman Fantastic Four. Oh man, I wanted that to be good so bad. And when you're a huge fan and you're watching it going, oh, this is bad. This is unbearably bad.
That's like a garden hose at the end.
Oh man, that was so unbearably bad. And now the technology has kind of caught up to it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole new audience that I don't, as you said, the QVC UK. Does everybody know it comes from comic books? I don't know. Everybody that watches Loki, everybody that watched, Falcon and Winter Soldier and Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, did they know that it came from a comic? I think they do now.
They do now because
but
they still don't know where to get the comics.
Yeah, and I think we have a whole bunch of people that want to read the comics that haven't really taken that next step because they're not entirely sure. And through the years, a very sad statement, and I think you had the numbers of local comic book shops have shrunk to a degree that it's almost scary. It reminds me of, again, we're a bit older than you are, Alec. I remember when hardware stores, your local hardware store started to disappear, and now,
it all became Sears.
Yeah, you're going to Lowe's or,
at the time, it was all Sears.
Well,
Sears is gone now, too.
It was Home Depot and Lowe's.
They really just decimated everybody.
Now, I need, a bag of screws and some bolts, and I go to Home Depot and becomes, almost a chore.
Because it takes longer for you to get the stuff than it is to fix
where
the stuff.
Where am I going to find it? When I have some guy, with that poor guy, I'm looking for a bag this big, and they've got toilets, and they've got bathroom fixtures, and they've got lamps, and he doesn't even know. Well, let me think about it for a minute. And it's lost. It's I remember my parents would ask the local hardware store guy, about doing some do-it-yourself stuff. Today you go on YouTube and you'll see a do-it-yourself video on how to do it. But back then, who did you have to talk to? Your local hardware store guy. Hey, listen, I'm getting ready to do this. What do you think I need?
Yep.
And if we're not careful, we're gonna have some sort of big.
By the way, thank you, Will C, saying the Invincible Red Sonja is awesome.
Oh,
Jimmy and Amanda rock it out. And everybody hit that thumbs up button and share. Sharing is caring.
Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to AR Comics. Again, a great videos that he posts, very informative. If you're already a collector, he does a great preview every week of Comic Book Day, a new Comic Book Day. If you're a beginning collector and you want to learn something, this guy will drop some wisdom on you.
And on Wednesday the 22nd, he'll be dropping Wisdom live.
Yes, we're liable. Me, John, and Alec are liable to talk about anything. Okay, because and I think you already know, Alec, food will definitely be a topic that we will discuss. So try to study up. If there's something, now I remember you said you were out of Oklahoma, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So before that, next week,
they got the best steaks at the very least.
Well, we're going to need him to review that for us. So we're going to need you steak this weekend and give us a review. Go to a couple places, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, John knows his stuff. So you're going to have to compete with John. He always knows immediately every cuisine of every part of the country. But,
I miss my Philly food spots, all my East Coast spots. That's what I miss.
Yeah, listen, I told you that we're talking about shooting in a brewery. And we'll order cheesesteaks out, buddy.
Yep.
We'll get it from a couple of places, and we'll do our own little review. So you'll have to fly in for that one for sure.
Soon enough, I'll be back. But hey, since we were talking about next Wednesday when I'm going to be on, down low, I have, Follow the Experience. Make sure you guys go check that out. But for those of you just tuning in, and you weren't able to catch last week's live stream of all of us, explain to everyone that still is here, what is the Experience like? So obviously you've got Dynamite, you've got Dynamic Forces, you have your own YouTube channels as well, which obviously you guys need to go check out too. But why the Experience? Like, what is that for everyone who doesn't know?
The Experience is our opportunity to create a platform to try and grow the comics market. Obviously, we bring comics and collectibles on the air to present for people to claim if they like them. But we spend a little bit more time talking about the comics, talking about the industry, talking about retailers. The Experience has a mix of claim shows and also has shows that focus on entertainment. We have the Dan Wickline show where he has his writer show where they talk about movies and TV series. We have our claim shows. We have a show on cosplayers that's every Friday night at 6 o'clock. Is it 5 or 6? I think it's at 6. We have our show at 7 o'clock on Fridays, the Original Art Experience. And tonight we're going to have some great art. We've got Frank Quietly, Dale Eaglesham, quite a few beautiful pieces that we're really excited about. A Francesco Francavilla Batman. It's going to be really cool. 7 o'clock tonight on the Experience. And, the thing is the beautiful thing about the Experience is we're trying to bring a little bit more of the aesthetics and the production of a QVC or HSN. We simulcast on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website all at the same time. And we're just here because of the love of the industry. We're here to grow the comics industry. As we said before, there's probably $10 billion every year invested into the industry. But, the Avengers selling Endgame grossing $2.4 billion at the box office alone and driving hundreds of millions of dollars in video on demand and pay-per-view and cable. The comics sell 35,000 copies. There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. They probably sell more than 35,000 of a Thor action figure. Matter of fact, I don't think Hasbro can make an action figure if they make less than like 300,000 of them. So, Thor sells 40,000 copies because, Donny Cates, God bless, he's really, really made Thor work. But Donny Cates' Thor should be selling 150,000 copies, 200,000 copies. It is so rich. It is so great. The guy is one of the best writers this industry has ever had. Not even one of the best writers today. One of the best writers this industry has ever had. They should be stratospheric, the sales. So if we can get every week 10 more comics sold, and it doesn't matter if it's Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Dynamite, any comic from any publisher, we've done our job, because that's our goal. Yes, we would love for you to claim the comics we're bringing on the air, because obviously we have to pay bills too, and that is a driving force. But the bigger driving force is promoting the comics industry.
Yeah, I want to say this. I mean, and then I'm gonna blow up your chat boards because I'm gonna say something controversial. But,
oh boy, Barry Bonds wasn't that good?
No, that's not what I'm gonna say. But I want to say that the Experience is, as we said, a attempt to build your digital local comic shop to help push those small businesses across the country so they stop closing and hopefully, with everyone's hope, they begin to grow, but to kind of replicate the ability to have a conversation. So that's why you have a mixture of claim shows, you have a mixture of informational shows, so on and so forth. Why your YouTube channel and Jem Mint and Robbie, why you guys are so important. Now, the controversial part I'm going to say was, I think on the chats, I think it was Ryan that said Philly cheesesteaks are the best. Yeah, absolutely. And New Jersey pizza is the best, and that is absolutely the truth. And this is where the controversial
part. You haven't had much South Philly pizza.
I've had plenty. Cash's Bakery. Oh, the tomato pie is the best. All right, I know what I'm talking about.
All right, just
sure. But I want to say this: the Brooklyn style pizza was invented in New Jersey. Okay, that'll get your chat boards blown up.
So they migrated.
I'm just saying. Okay, it didn't start out in Brooklyn. So, all right, now it's going to come up. Here we go. It's going to shut your site down. But in all seriousness, I mean, I think that the goal of the Experience was to kind of build that experience, if you will, that local comic book shop experience. Because of a primary driving force was the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, I think people, life has gotten so busy that people, the way they receive and share information has changed. My TV went out. I had to buy a new one, and my daughter, my 21-year-old daughter, didn't even notice for like 2 days. Okay, because I didn't get a chance to go out to Target and get a new TV because she doesn't even watch TV. In my day, if the TV went out, I'd be screaming, "Ma, the TV doesn't work. The end of the world is coming."
Oh my God, I know. Even me growing up, that's exactly what it would be like. It's like, yo, there's something wrong with the TV right now.
She goes, she came down. I think it took a day. She's come down looking at her phone. She goes, "What's wrong with the TV?" I go, "It's busted." She goes, "Oh." And she goes to the kitchen and the fridge, grabs something, and goes back to her room.
Well, there was this one cartoon I saw once or a commercial or something, where the parents said to the kids, "Will you stop playing on the computer and do something else?" And the kids start doing something else and make noise. And the parents are like, "Can you go back to your computer?"
So, and I want to respond to Ryan. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Best pizza in the world right here in New Jersey. Okay, Brooklyn style pizza invented in New Jersey. Oh man, I'm gonna start getting hate mail.
So just because we were just talking about it before, one of the comments, figure drawing. I'm gonna be honest. I feel kind of the same way. I absolutely agree. I think Donny Cates is a phenomenal writer. I think he comes up with incredible ideas. I think he has so many of these like insane ideas that just start everything off so strong that he's got so much stuff going and he's like, all right, let's get the next one going. I got to start this next idea right now. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
I think that may be a little bit of a, what's the best word to use? Just a little bit of being that popular and people wanting you to do so many things. And
I can agree with that too.
Something that you're pulled in a lot of directions, because there are some books where maybe there have been lulls, but he picks it back up. He picks it back up and he just kills it. And I will tell you, there's a lot of writers that say they write for the artist. Donny Cates writes for the artist. He knows what to put in the book for an artist to really execute. And keep in mind one thing, not everything is for everybody. I'm saying, in my mind, Donny Cates is one of the best writers this industry's ever had, but that doesn't mean that everybody here is reading, who even likes Donny Cates, is reading everything Donny Cates writes. Some people might be reading crossover. Some people might be reading Thor. Some people may have been reading Venom, and now will probably be reading Hulk or some mix of those books. So, it's just like any movie, I'm a Tom Cruise fan, but I didn't watch Valkyrie because it just didn't interest me. There are things that people write that don't interest everybody. Put Mission Impossible in front of me, I'll be like, yeah, man, I'm watching this. I mean, actually, I'm one of the few people that'll say Jack Reacher was great.
I like Jack Reacher. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
So,
although second movie, and I like the second movie.
Notice that was the second Tom Cruise reference that Nick made in this last hour. I'm just saying.
It is what it is. But no, the reason why I bring, I will say, ironically, the second Jack Reacher movie, which I still thought was good. What was the title? Never Go Back. It's like, oh boy, all right, the movie performed less. Maybe Never Go Back should have been your first hit.
I can agree with all those comments though about Donny Cates. He absolutely does write for the artist. That artwork in Venom, Thor, hell, even going back, I love the oh my God, the vampire one that takes place in Texas. I can't even think of what it's called.
I know the one from
Image.
Company. Jesus, Aftershock.
No, from Image. Oh yeah, you got Baby Teeth too. That one wraps up, I think, next week.
Yeah,
but it's just his storytelling flows so well with the artwork. And someone else said it too, and I know you did too. So many people want him right now because he creates incredible stuff, and maybe that ties into it too. And you can't fault him for taking on all these projects. If everybody wants him and everyone wants him to do this, why would he say no? What's he going to do? Say, no, I'm not going to do that for you, and then limit himself?
Right.
No,
But he does end things when it's time to end it, and he
that
ended
too.
Venom on a high note with issue 200. So I think and he has. I have met Donnie, and I think he understands the responsibility that he has in creating great comics so that the industry can grow. I mean, there are people like Donnie Cates, there are people like Robert Kirkman, and I'm not going to pick 50 names just to have forgotten 50 others, but there are people that love this industry so much that they make sure that they're giving the retailers and the fans enough comics to keep them coming back. I mean, Robert Kirkman ended Walking Dead. It was a surprise, ended on a high note. And fans wanted more, and he did the Skyfall series. He did those issues of all number ones. He made sure that fans had a reason to go in the comic store. I've said this a lot. Being the publisher of Dynamite, one of the publishers I'm most impressed with in the world is Eric Stevenson. I think Eric Stevenson was genius on so many levels. He was able to take the success of Walking Dead as a lightning rod, and he and Kirkman and the other Image partners who did went and approached all the most popular Marvel and DC creators and said, come to Image, you'll make the same amount of money or more than you are at Marvel with your creator owned, and you keep it all. And he grew Image Comics, and there's a reason why he's curated Image so well, why it's doing so well, why there's something for everybody there. And I have mad respect for Eric. And these are the people that, I'm the CEO publisher of Dynamite Comics. I'm talking about Donnie Cates. I'm talking about Eric Stevenson. I'm talking about other publishers or creators that are exclusive to other publishers. Why? Simple. Because it helps the industry grow. Because, as I said, it doesn't matter what comics people buy based on this live stream. All that matters is you try more comics. You can try more cheesesteak too, but more comics.
You always try more cheesesteak.
And that's the cool thing about it too, because with what you said, if no one's buying comics, no one's going to know about other publishers, other comics that they're coming out with. But like you said, with Image, it's got a little something for everybody. And people like myself that started off with only Marvel, I went into DC, and as a comic book reader, at the time, I had no idea there were even other publishers out there. So because I found that I really liked those comics, I moved on to, Image and Boom Studios. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of other companies out here too than just Marvel and DC. And that's how I've expanded my knowledge. And now basically from learning that there's stuff outside of Marvel and DC, I almost really only go for indie books at this point. But someone made a comment a while ago about Marvel, and I know what we were talking about with Image and Marvel in the mid-90s. They said basically Marvel is doing kind of the same thing now, how things were back in the day. And I'm going to make a bold statement on this one. I think, only because we were just talking about Donnie Cates too, he's one of the only writers that I know. Well, I obviously don't know him, but he's taking all of these big characters. He's got Venom. He's got Thor. He's going to be taking over the Incredible Hulk. How many other writers out there are willing to take on these famously popular characters and create an entire story like that? This is the bold claim part. He is, in my opinion, the only thing he's one of the main writers that's really keeping Marvel afloat right now. There's so many these 5-issue mini runs that don't tie into anything. It's just its own little story. And to be honest, a lot of them I've read, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just not particularly for me.
Not everything is for everybody.
True. But he's got these ongoings of popular characters that everybody loves. And not only are they characters that everybody loves, he's creating stories that are so incredibly popular. This is going back to the speculation too. Look at Venom. He created oh my God, I can't even think of it right now. In Venom 3.
No.
Yeah, he created Null.
And all of a sudden the Venom goes back to Marvel Spotlight.
Yep.
It's
and
not
it all comes
War
back to that
anymore.
stuff.
It's Marvel Spotlight.
he's creating he's taking Marvel right now and creating basically his own universe, a Donny Cates universe in Marvel. All these other little 5-issue mini runs that have nothing to do with anything, he's slowly working his way down the character list and making his own world, and I think that's incredible. I've said my own things about Donny Cates before, where some of the stories I'm not a big fan of, some of them I think have fell off, but the things he truly is doing for the industry is insane when you really think about it.
No, he's the Mark Millar of today. He really, really is. I've said this a few times. You know, I consider Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman the Mark Millar and Steve McNiven, the George Perez.
They go together.
The Chris Claremont and John Byrne of today. Those two are magic together. They are absolutely magic together. And you know, I do think it is a team effort, and I do think that there's a lot of great stories coming out of Marvel. And you know, there are for some people, the interconnected books don't work for them because it's too much. You know, they like the single series, and that's the beauty of our industry. There are enough comics coming out every week that you can pick and choose what you love. So, you know.
So I know we're getting to the top of the hour. So,
yeah.
You know, I'll make my shameless plug. So tonight from 7 to 8 on The Experience, we have the original art show. Monday, we have our comic collectibles from 6 to 8 p.m.
I'm actually going to go get some of the art to show. You
all of the times are Eastern. And then Wednesday, Alec from AR Comics will be joining us from 6 to 8, again, Eastern time for our comic collectibles show with my partner, John, not Nick. And Nick's going to pull out some of the original art from tonight to kind of flash on the screen there. But you know, thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. But I'm looking forward to having you on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this more often. So everyone that is in here now, this is going to be, so I'm going to be on The Experience every other Wednesday doing the live stream. And then I'm not sure if it's the same Friday or the every other Friday, you guys are going to be back on doing a Comic Convos episode. So the cool thing with everyone that's still hanging out, it looks like the game plan is to basically be doing a Comic Convos episode every Friday now. The Dynamite guys, The Experience, they're going to be on the every other Friday. And then from there, we're going to be having a guest on the opposite Friday. So there's going to be a lot more live streams happening on this channel. And I'm really excited to really get it all going. And, you know, a huge thank you to you guys. Thank you for coming on this channel. Thank you for wanting to do it as well. And it's just an awesome opportunity to be able to do this stuff with you.
No, it's fantastic. So real quick, we were talking about Francesco Francavilla. This is the Batman commission that he drew. Here is The Villains United by Dale Eaglesham, and perfect timing with Black Adam coming soon. We have Green Hornet Year One by Aaron Campbell, and Aaron had a great celebrated run on Hellblazer. Speaking of Spawn, we have Eric Larson's Spawn on the air tonight. We have Frank Quietly with Jupiter's Legacy. This is really hard to get art. So 7 o'clock tonight on The Experience. It's going to be really cool. As Rex said, next Wednesday, 6 p.m. on The Experience, AR will be joining us. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And, you know, if you guys ever want to come prepped with questions for us when we show up here, please feel free. We're here for you.
And one last point before we sign off here. If you haven't liked or subscribed to AR Comics YouTube channel, please do so. You know, the guy will drop some serious wisdom on you, you know, concerning the comic book industry, what's coming up, a great show. Alec, you're very entertaining and engaging. So
and
you guys
and knowledgeable. I encourage everybody, if you haven't done it already, thumbs up and subscribe.
Yeah, knowledgeable and positive, which is the best part about the industry.
Well,
so, Alec,
thank
you for doing such a great job day in, day out.
Well, thank you for everything as well. You guys are killing it too. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know a lot about Dynamite. And then, you know, a lot of people turned me on to it. And I almost feel like as soon as I started reading the books and like really getting more into it, you hit me up and it's like, hey, and it's like, wow, I'm slowly starting to get into all of these books. I read the Red Sonja, Kiss came out. The Evil Dead series, the Army was it Army of the
Army of
Dead?
Darkness, yeah.
Army of Darkness
1979.
1979. That just came out, and it's like, wow, at the right time, all of these new series just came out, and I hopped on all of them. And it, like you said, one thing leads to another, and just these books are incredible. You just truly have to go out and experience a lot of them. The artwork, the stories, and yeah, I mean, I could go on forever. I really could.
I think we all could.
Hold that thought until next Wednesday.
Exactly. Hold it till Wednesday and Friday, and we will pick this all up. So thank you. And also, again, as Rex said, subscribe, hit that thumbs up, share. Sharing is caring. You cannot share this enough. Share it to your Facebook page. Share this to your Twitter account, to your Instagram. Anything you could do to help AR grow is great, because obviously he's bringing you so much entertainment, and if he can grow here, he can give you more, just like everybody else. And thank you all who watched us today, and thank you all who watch AR on a regular basis. You guys are all stars as well, and we wouldn't be here without you.
Awesome. And on that note, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night. Stay tuned. Hop on in the experience. It's down low. It's in the description. If you guys are available with 7 o'clock EST, definitely hop on. They got some awesome artwork tonight. And then, like they said, next Wednesday, I'll be on 6 p.m. EST. And then next Friday, again, we're going to be doing another episode of Comic Convos. So thank you all very much. Thank you again, Mr. Barucci, Mr. Rex.
I think Nick is good. I think Nick is good.
Hey, just got to say it. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Have a good night, everybody.